There are tons and tons of different insurance and financial products available out there in the marketplace that might be able to help you with your retirement and your retirement income plan. One of these products that we get asked about all the time is called a fixed index annuity. In this video, what we're going to do is cover exactly what you need to know about fixed index annuities before purchasing one. We'll cover what they are, how they work, the pros and cons of them, how the sales pitch typically goes, and why insurance salespeople and companies are so fond of them, and who might be potentially a good fit for one of these products, all in under 10 minutes. So a fixed index annuity is an annuity product just like any other. You're dealing with an insurance company when you buy an annuity. Basically, you establish this policy, you put money into the policy, it grows in some way, shape, or form, and then you have more money inside the policy that you can take out at a later date to pay for retirement-related expenses. And there are several ways that you can get money out of the policies. Now, don't confuse fixed index annuities with fixed annuities. Fixed annuities are basic forms of annuities. You put your money into this annuity policy, and then it grows over time just like a CD grows at a bank. You get a very modest amount of growth over time, but there's less risk because the value is not going to go up and down. It's only going to go up based on the interest rate you're getting inside that policy. Now, a fixed index annuity is different. You put your money into this policy, you choose an index, usually a stock index to track, and then the value of your holdings goes up over time based on how that stock index does. Insurance representatives, insurance companies love to sell fixed index annuities. And the reason is that they're hugely profitable for insurance companies. They're hugely profitable for representatives who sell them because they're profitable for insurance companies. And for most people, by and large, they're probably not very good for us. Now, I've heard dozens and dozens of sales pitches for these products, and they often come with some inaccuracies and half-truths. So let's go through each of these components of the sales pitch and kind of debunk what's going on inside these policies. So the first one that I hear over and over and over again is, how would you like to enjoy the returns of the stock market with none of the downside risk? And what that implies is if you take $100,000, you put it into one of these policies, you decide that you want to track or follow the S&P 500 index, that if the S&P 500 is up by 5%, then at the end of in a given year, then at the end of that year, your balance in the policy will be $105,000. Or if it's up by 20%, your balance would be $120,000. But if you put money into the policy and the markets crash and the S&P 500 is down 15%, you're not going to take any of that risk. You'll be locked in at that $100,000. Now, the downside risk is accurate. When you put money into one of these things, it's not going to go down in value. But they haircut the growth in two very important ways. One of them is through what's called a cap rate. So in most years, the S&P 500 might be up 5 or 10%, or it might be down or something like that. In some years, it'll grow by more than that, 15, 20, 25% in some years. In fixed index annuity policies, the growth on your money is capped at a certain rate, usually 10 or 12%. So if you put money into a policy and then the S&P 500 pops and it goes up 20, 25% in a given year, you're going to be capped at that first 10 or 12%, whatever that cap rate is. The second way that they haircut the growth is through a participation rate, which means that if the stock market, the S&P 500 goes up by 10%, your balance will go up, but by less than 10%. And that participation rate might be 75, 80, 90%, something like that. So if you compare that to taking the $100,000 and just investing in the S&P 500 on your own, yes, you have all the downside risk. That money is at risk. It can lose value, but you're not going to be haircut when you have good years. And when you balance out the good years and the bad years over a longer period of time, you're much better off investing that money on your own than you are dumping it into a fixed index annuity that basically caps the high end and the low end. Another part of the sales pitch we hear all the time is some kind of bonus feature. If you sign by the end of the week, if you put money in this account by the end of the week, we'll give you a 10% bonus. If you put $100,000 into a policy, we'll add $10,000 to that, so your balance on day one will be $110,000. Now, they can't outright lie to you. They can't give you fictitious bonus numbers and all these things. That is accurate. But my point with this is that these things are so profitable on the back end that this bonus is just part of the math to get you to buy the policy. It's so good for the insurance company, and it's not good for you, that they're willing to tack on 10% just to induce you to jump into the policy. And here's the catch. You can't unwind this thing free of penalty if you choose. There's often a long-term surrender charge over the course of 5 to 10 years, to where if you want the $100,000 back in year 2, you're going to have to pay a substantial penalty to the insurance company to do so. And the only reason that they impose these charges is that they incentivize the salespeople through those fat commissions we talked about so much that that commission check goes out on the day that you sign the policy. They don't want you to turn around and dump the policy after year 1 because they just paid this fat commission check to the representative. They need to earn that money back over the course of 5 or 10 years, which is why they impose these long-term surrender charges. Another one that comes up quite a bit is long-term care riders. A lot of these policies come with some kind of long-term care rider, and people who purchase these policies often assume that that rider is going to cover all their long-term care needs and expenses in the future. And that's flat not true in many, many cases. Some of these policies do offer long-term care riders. They do have some benefits, but those benefits are modest at best. Okay, it might provide some modest amount of confinement care if and when you need it, but believe me when I tell you that it's not glamorous. And if you are like most people and will need help in some form with daily activities of living, if you need to go live in a nursing home or need memory care or anything of the like, the riders on these policies are not going to cover it. And the last part of the sales pitch, this is my favorite part of it, has to do with the fees, right? You attend one of these seminars where they talk about the benefits of these products and why it would be silly not to buy one. And you're wondering, well, I wonder what this is going to cost me. And you ask about the fee structure. What are the fees? How much do these products cost? And the response is, there are no fees. We don't charge anything for this work. And technically, that's accurate. They don't charge you an explicit fee out of the balance of your policy for being in the policy. The fee that you're paying is implicit. So if you put $100,000 into this policy, it tracks the S&P 500. Remember, if the policy or if the S&P 500 goes up by 20%, your balance is only going to go up by whatever that cap rate is, 10 or 12%. So the fee is the implied difference that you're missing out on that the insurance company is collecting, because they're taking your $100,000 and they're investing it right in the market. They're getting 100% of that long-term growth and only passing a portion of it on to you. And that part that you don't see is the fee. Now, in exchange for that extra growth that you've given up, they are providing that downside risk, right? The balance in your account is not going to fall. But boy, that is a pound of flesh if I have ever seen it. So those are the major benefits of these fixed indexed annuities. They do provide some growth over time. They provide no downside risk, right? They're not going to fall in value if the market crashes. All that growth, by the way, is tax deferred, which is a nice benefit. There are no fees that you pay out of pocket. They're all implied, and on the back end, the insurance company collects that you don't really see. And they come with some riders and features sometimes, right? Now, the downsides are just too big for me to get by. Number one, the surrender charges are massive, like I said, and they drag on forever. The insurance salespeople collecting these fat commissions for selling them, the insurance company need to recoup those costs. So in order to do that, they lock you into the policy for 5, 10 years, somewhere in between, to make sure that they make enough money off of you to justify that expense on day one. The second thing, big drawback, is that you should not get into one of these things if you're expecting market returns. You will not get market returns. And the way the math works is the cap rate and the participation rate provides a huge haircut, which the insurance company benefits from. And again, if the stock market goes up by 15%, you ain't getting 15%. If it goes up by 10%, maybe you get it, maybe you don't, if the participation rate is less than 100%. So whatever the insurance company does not pass along to you in the form of investment growth, they keep for themselves. And what happens is when you put the $100,000 into this policy, they turn around and they invest it directly in the S&P 500, and then they haircut the returns that they pass along to you. So it's hard to get past this from my perspective. That's why these products tend to be really, really good for the insurance companies and the salespeople that sell them, and not quite as good for retirees and folks developing their retirement income plans. I'm sure at this point in the video that it seems like I am unilaterally, completely anti-annuity, anti-insurance company in all shapes and forms. I assure you that's not the case. I have the perspective of an objective practitioner. I evaluate these things with a completely open mind, and while I don't think that the juice is worth the squeeze, I think you're giving up a lot more than you're getting with these kinds of products. There is a fact pattern for whom they might make sense. If you're someone who is comfortable giving up the flexibility that you have with your cash, with your savings for a long period of time, you're comfortable handing that over to the insurance company in exchange for some form of growth that has no risk, that has that downside protection, maybe it can be a good fit. You need to be aware that you are not going to get market returns. If you're not comfortable taking market risk whatsoever, this could be a good fit. If you're comfortable just taking a little bit of market risk, you're probably much better off investing your money either on your own or with the help of a professional in a conservatively allocated portfolio. Because when it's in a portfolio, it's yours. You can make changes to it. You can do whatever you want with it over time. That being said, if you're comfortable with the surrender parameters, you know what you're getting yourself into, you don't mind losing all that flexibility for the period of the next 5 or 10 years, potentially it might be a good fit. That's all we had for today. I hope this was helpful. I hope we covered the important points of fixed index annuities succinctly. Let me know what we missed in the comments. I'm sure there's quite a bit.